The globe is facing an interesting series of cyber threats driven by a large amount of disagreements, quite frankly, between multiple parties across the globe today. Traditionally, there was lots of theft of intellectual property. People were trying to get ahead. There's also another traditional side of theft of data, whether it be credit cards, whether it be ransomware attacks. Because of what's happening around the globe right now, there's so many different disagreements that we're seeing an uptick at the nation state level. We're seeing an uptick at people that are trying to mimic the nation states, as well as just cyber criminals and people who are passionate about any one series of now dozens of different causes. It's interesting how cyber targeting is changing as it relates to the disruption that we're seeing globally right now. There's first part of that is critical infrastructure, whether that be the electric system, whether that be your financial system. Not only are people still trying to steal that data, there's ransomware that's meant for wiping that data, so those organizations cannot function. They don't have backups oftentimes, they don't have resiliency to bring them back online. So in essence, some of this critical infrastructure you can stop completely by some of the attacks that we're seeing, particularly in these malware wiping attacks. Nations and organizations are in parallel working at a collaborative level. When I say at the organizational level, there are things like what we refer to as ISACs, Information Sharing Analysis Centers. So in different verticals, whether they be financial, whether they be electrical, these organizations are sharing intel with each other about what's happening in a real time. At the country level, as you would expect, there's been a lot of movement for sharing data, whether they be close historical countries, such as the Five Eyes between the US, UK, Australia, Canada, whether they be within the European Union or other, sometimes former colonial powers with their former colonies. They're starting to share data because that's the only way that they're able to effectively fight this cyber war. One, I'd make sure that you have a conceptual framework for your security program so you know what you can be consistent in, what measure you can manage. Should have a security incident response plan. Should be testing that plan. Should be looking at frameworks like a zero trust framework, implementing that framework. Should also be testing your controls and testing your response to the incidents, because as everybody knows today, particularly things like ransomware, it has gone from a case of ransomware is never going to happen except to the really poorly defended networks, to everybody assumes, and you should assume, that it will happen to you at some point. So you need to be prepared for it by having a resilient network as well as a resilient response.